The 4th of July has been and gone. It is officially summer, and a tradition that I've been following for quite a few years now is to go camping in a place called Round Lake State Park in northern Idaho. It's a terrific place. We love going there, and it's a place where you can paddleboard, stand-up paddleboard, you can kayak, you can float around on a tube and drink a beer. And it's very, very pleasant. Last year, in fact, me, Lysander and Kate swam across Round Lake and then back again. I was exhausted. Luckily we had Evan and Jordan paddleboarding next to us, just in case anyone's got a cramp and drowned. It wouldn't have been much fun to drown there. I did not drown there. But it's one of those traditional things we do in the summertime. And of course, it's the middle of a heat wave now. I mean, it's properly summer. It's going to be 90 degrees most days or close to it. And we're right in the middle of the European Cup, and I want to see the England game as well. I don't know how I'm going to manage that, but I'll give it a try. But we have other traditions as well, and some of them are sort of sitting around a campfire and making s'mores, which I never knew there was such a thing growing up in Britain, of course, but it turns out it's quite an easy cookie, aka biscuit in English, chocolate and marshmallow that you toast on the fire. And talking of fires, of course, we're hopeful that we'll actually be able to have a campfire, because the wildfires around the American West, and in fact all over the place, can be pretty terrible. And so we've been there a couple of times, and there's been fire bans, you can't have a campfire, but also it's been super smoky there. So I wanted to mark the fact I'm going to go off on a little holiday and go camping with something that also brings to mind the hope that there will be no smoke. And so this cocktail is called When the Smoke Cleared, and it's one that was invented in Miami Beach in Florida by a guy called Stephen Wicker at the Raleigh Bar there. And it seems quite appropriate. It's got this, its smokiness comes from mezcal, and the color of it, which is it's orangey, so it's vaguely reminiscent of a fire, I suppose, comes from Aperol. It's quite a tasty, bright, refreshing and complex drink, and it's kind of got all of the tastes in it. It's got umami, it's got sweet, it's got sour, it's got spicy, it's got all of it. And so let's just throw this together and see how it comes along. So mezcal, use mezcal joven in cocktails. I've got my mezcal union, and we need 1.5 ounces of that, like so. So then the Aperol I've mentioned as well, I'm going to put in 1/2 ounce of that. And you can see the sort of red-orange colour of this aperitif as it goes in. It's a sort of fiery colour, I suppose. Not very fiery tasting, it's kind of a bit sweet actually. But don't worry, we're going to balance that out with other stuff. So for example, we are going to go, the recipe calls for lime juice. I've got some here. It calls for 3/4 ounce, but my taste tends to lean towards less citrusy, or at least less of the sort of sourness from the citrus. So I'm going to do a scant 3/4 ounce. It's probably closer to 1/2 ounce really, because that's more to my taste. Now here comes some sweet. 3/4 ounce of pineapple juice. That's got it all going on in here, doesn't it? Like so. And some spiciness. That's going to come from, I've got some, there's a Portland company that makes syrups, flavoured syrups. This one's a ginger syrup. You could of course make it yourself just by making a simple syrup, water and sugar, bring it to the boil and let it cool, and that just steeping some root ginger in there. I'm cheating and using this, but it's quite good stuff. And the original recipe calls for 1/2 ounce, which I am going for. If you make it sweeter, more of a 2-to-1 sugar syrup, and obviously you might use a little less, but again, with all these cocktails, go for what you actually, what your taste buds tell you to. And finally, and this is another interesting little concoction, a little bit of saline solution, and you make that just by putting some salt in with water and then shaking it in a jar. And I'm using my dropper here to get a couple of drops of saline solution, and that will be that sort of saltiness of the drink. We're going to just stir that. I've said before, you don't need to stir it for very, very long, just until the outside of the glass gets all that condensation on it. You know it's well chilled, you're bruising the ice, as I talked about before, rather than shaking. Although I will admit, I like the shaking because of the shards of ice in there, but that's not what this recipe calls for. Although someone did point out, this is on Difford's guide, I like Simon Difford's website, I mentioned it before, that you could easily make this drink and then just kind of pour it over rocks, over ice in a rocks glass. And that would also be quite tasty. I'm not doing that. I'm going to stick more with the original recipe here. And I am just going to strain that into a chilled cocktail glass. I'm using a Nick and Nora glass. Use whatever cocktail glass you want. Obviously, it's not that. It doesn't really make that much difference. And then there's a garnish. Should be a piece of crystallized stem ginger, candied ginger. I don't have that. But what I did have were some dried cranberries, which, although they're not exactly adding much in terms of the flavour as far as I'm concerned, because they're not even going to be in the drink. But I'm just going to put a few of them on there because, you know, the colour of them has that sort of burnt red look when they've been dried like that. So I think, you know, just vaguely reminiscent of a campfire, we hope. And so we'll just put that in there like so, and let's see what we've got. Ah, that's delicious, and yes, the smoke is clearing. Cheers.